if you look at it from a bird's eye perspective at the country of Thailand, I've always been really, really interested and excited about how they actually have a national plan for evangelism among the all the denominations in Thailand. So that's exciting. And I think even in my 15 years here, I've seen a bit of an acceleration of church plants happening and different ministries popping up, and a lot of people still coming in and having a lot of energy and drive. I think one thing that is most encouraging to me is that people are responding to the message. There are many who are desperate and thirsty for that, for the message of the gospel, and are responding to it.
Greetings and welcome to the Missions Show, where we explore your hard questions on missions, theology, and practice to help goers think and thinkers go. I'm Alex Kochman, your host. I'm alone today without my co-host, Scott Dunford. We're recording a little bit earlier today, so he wasn't quite able to make it in his time zone. But speaking of time zones, we have a guest coming to us from the other side of the planet today. I think it's exactly a 12-hour difference for us, coming to us from Thailand. And so we're excited to introduce him to you in just a moment. But first, if this is your first time joining us, we're glad you're here. Or if you're a longtime listener, if you are listening to this in your favorite podcast app or watching this on YouTube, remember to subscribe, remember to share this with a friend, give it a thumbs up, give it a like. Most of all, if you're an Apple Podcast listener, give it a positive rating and review and help other people discover this content. Because our prayer with this show is not just that it's engaging content, yes, we want that, but also that it's moving people into action. And the more people who discover the content, the more people who can be activated in their service to the Lord in the Great Commission. That's what we're here to discuss today with my friend Ben Collins. Ben is a long time. Ben, I was doing some research before we hopped on the call here. 17 years technically since you were appointed to serve with ABWE long term. But of course, you're an MK as well. You're a missionary kid. You and your wife, Susie, and your 4 children serving in Thailand. Brother, tell us a little bit more about your ministry. This is a timely conversation. You guys are in the middle of a move, and maybe some things are changing in your ministry. So tell us, what is it that you're doing in service to the Lord where you're serving right now in Asia?
Sure. Yeah. So we are in Bangkok, Thailand. And most recently, I took the role as a team leader for the Thailand team here. We were in a village about 4 hours out of Bangkok, just church planting there, alongside a Thai couple who was also interested in running an organic farm. So right now they are going ahead and running with the organic farm and a church plant there. But we made the move back to Bangkok. And so I've been taking on that role of visiting. We have 6 units kind of scattered all around the country. So keeping up with them and just being an encouragement as much as we can. And then I help serve with a local Christian school here, just on the board of that school, and amazing school. Love it. Love the vision and the mission they have there. Really impacting a lot of students. And so getting to do that as well.
Exciting. And if anyone knows your family, your family has had a big missions impact, especially in the ABWE world. Obviously, the Missions Show is a ministry of ABWE. And so there's a decades and decades long legacy there as well. And so we're grateful for you. We're grateful for your whole family. But why are we talking about Thailand today? Well, we've got this theme here on our show, but also within ABWE in general for 2026. We've been praying and really seeking the Lord's guidance and wisdom. And the verse that's kind of bubbled up to the top for us has been Habakkuk 2:14, that the knowledge of the glory of the Lord will cover the earth as the waters cover the seas. In other words, the Great Commission is not going to fail. It's going to finish. We're going to make disciples of all the nations. We are going to flood the nations with the gospel. And the question is, how are we going to do that? And so we've been beginning this process for 2026 of highlighting certain key fields, important parts of the world where there's gospel opportunity. And I'm excited because right now we're trying to shine a little bit of a spotlight on Thailand. Now, people in the missions community might know this. A lot of people might not know this, but there's a lot of a missionary presence in Thailand. I've heard people joke that Chiang Mai is the Richmond, Virginia of Asia. I don't know how true that actually is, but there's a pretty large international worker community. There's people that have been serving there. And, Thailand is an interesting place. You've got all sorts of feelings about America or feelings about the West all throughout Asia. But then Thailand is a place where, for one reason or another, At least to my knowledge, it's relatively permissible for missionaries, Christian missionaries, to operate openly and legally, which I think creates great opportunity as well. But I think it also maybe can cause some people to overlook the needs that are there. People think, well, we need to be in China, we need to be in India, and all these sorts of maybe more difficult places, legally speaking. That doesn't mean Thailand's any less spiritually needy either. So for the uninitiated, maybe share with us a little bit about what is ministry like there? What's the state of evangelization in Thailand? What's the state of the church there? What is it that drew you there to pour out your life and to minister among these people?
Yeah, it's a good question. And actually, it was that exact thing you're talking about. I came on a vision trip through Thailand and India back when I was a senior in high school. And looking at moving overseas to do missions, when you look at Southeast Asia and the countries, even that Thailand is surrounded by, Burma, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Malaysia, none of these places are places where missionaries can go openly or easily at all. And Thailand ends up being a hub for a lot of reasons because of that. So Chiang Mai is a hub for a lot of people working in different countries too, but so is Bangkok. And so it really was serving as a hub that kind of drew me. I'm interested in, if I could sum up my vision, my passion right now is to connect gospel workers together for the furtherance of the gospel. And that could be anybody from any country, Thais with Thais, foreigners with foreigners, doesn't matter for me. And so Bangkok and Thailand is such an amazing place to be able to do that. I have a visa as a missionary. That's actually what my visa classification is, which is a pretty cool thing. And you look at missions has been in Thailand for more than 100 years, 150 years, and you have 70 million people, and when I came here, less than 0.5% Christian, still less than 1% Christian. And so it's not that the gospel isn't being shared. One of the encouraging things with the state of the church here in Thailand is they're very evangelistic, very creative in finding ways to evangelize too, in many different ways. But it's that taking root and that growing that we're still waiting to see.
Well, you've also been serving in Bangkok, as you mentioned a few times, and again, all I have are impressions from afar. But one of the things that you hear often about ministry in Bangkok is the number of at-risk children, is the sex trade, and unfortunately, that's a big problem throughout the world, and of course throughout Asia as well. But if you're talking about an epicenter for that, I think Bangkok is one of those maybe infamous places for that. And I know you and your wife have had a heart for some of the children affected in that city, some of the at-risk youth. What does that look like? And for those unfamiliar with those really unfortunate trends, what's happening in a place like Bangkok?
Yeah, I mean, you have kind of the two levels. You have the really flashy stuff that you'll see, or hear about from shows and movies and people's impressions of Bangkok and of Thailand. And that is true. There's statistics about the number of foreign men who get off a plane in Bangkok. How many of them will visit something or do something along those lines before they leave is kind of staggering and really, really sad. But there are many organizations that have been here for a long time, working with women at risk, children at risk, trying to keep families together and saying, if you can keep them in school for 2 more years or 3 more years instead of get that 6th grade education, it opens up a lot more opportunities so things don't happen in the future. Susie and I were involved for a couple of years in one of the bigger slums in Bangkok. And so kind of one of the things you see is parents will need to get work. So they go up and their kids are usually almost like latchkey kids or with the grandparents or something and not looked after very well. And a place like the slum, there's a lot going on that they could get involved in. And so we were running a kids ministry for a while, just trying to give them a safe place to come, let them know that they are valuable, that they're loved. Because I see a thread in so many ministries in Bangkok that it's people it's a city of 15 million, depending on how you look at it, 10 or 20 million people, but there's so much loneliness, there's so much brokenness here. So to provide that space of safe community, let people know you matter, you're valuable is a really powerful message. And then to share with them why they matter, I think it's such a ready message that many people are just waiting to hear.
Well, one of the emphases that we hear so much about, and I think rightly so, in the missions world is the importance of reaching the unreached, not just the lost, but the unreached, those who likely don't have access to the gospel. It sounds like in Thailand, there is a church. There is some level of access to the gospel. You might not have a church on every street corner, but there's some access. I know of people within our family of ministries. Our friend E.D. Burns, who leads our training division for ABWE, he's ministering to some more remote tribal villages that maybe have very little access to the gospel. But what are you seeing as far as the state of the church there? What's the type of work that still needs to be done? Is it still the sort of front lines evangelism for people that have never heard the name of Jesus Christ at all? Or are you more focused on working with existing believers to be more effective? You're talking about the slum ministry. I mean, are there other Thai believers that are there serving alongside you? Or is that really a space where, hey, if a missionary doesn't come in and do this job, there aren't a lot of others to do so?
Yeah, that's a great question. There is definitely frontline work to be done. And you look at Thailand, I believe there's a website called, if I remember correctly, eStar, where they've actually made a statistical reference map of Thailand to show where are the churches. And you can see entire vast swaths of the country where there's no presence. And even where we were just 4 hours out of Bangkok, about 200,000 people, and there was one registered church of about 30 people in it. So I'm from Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'm picturing Grand Rapids, Michigan with one church is kind of what it felt like. And that's not including all of the temples and things that are around too. So there is need for people to come and to share the gospel. The really amazing thing about Thailand is you can be anywhere on that spectrum. There's evangelism to be done. There's disciple making to be done. And there are Thai people that are working alongside and ready to take on. Actually, the couple that is in the village where we were sees themselves as Thai missionaries to Thailand, to another province. And there are people like that. But to meet a second generation Christian, someone whose parents is actually very rare. And to meet somebody who's a third generation Christian, it almost blows your mind. So there are, there's some longstanding thing there where you have first generation Christians who have a lot of cultural baggage and spiritual baggage that they're working through. But it is possible and it's happening for people who are interested in the evangelism aspect, people who are interested in the leadership training and the discipleship making. There's a lot going on, a lot of opportunities.
I'd love to hear what are some of the things that are giving you hope and are encouraging you. I mean, ministry is hard enough. It's discouraging enough. You think of the stories of pastors, even in the States, who step into the pulpit, with a resignation letter in their pocket just in case. I mean, it sounds like exaggerating, but ministry gets lonely even in places where there's relative access to the gospel, much less a more spiritually dark place. Like some of these parts of Asia where the light of Christ just has not shone to the extent that it has here throughout the West. So I'd love to hear what's giving you hope, what's encouraging you. I think of stories within other parts of the ABWE team that I'm aware of. I'm very encouraged, for instance, by the story of the Comptons running a church plant out of a CrossFit gym, just starting that CrossFit gym ministry in order to form relationships, but then actually seeing a church come out of that. People coming to Christ, being baptized and worshiping in the gym, setting up chairs each week and holding worship in that location. Really cool things are happening, of course. But for you as the team leader, I'd love to hear what is it that gives you hope, when you lay your head on your pillow at night, that that your labor in the Lord is not in vain. What are you seeing that encourages you?
If you look at it from a bird's eye perspective at the country of Thailand, I've always been really, really interested and excited about how they actually have a national plan for evangelism among the all the denominations in Thailand. What are we going to do? What areas are we going to reach? And so there are people who are working together, praying towards specific missions and visions. So that's exciting. And I think even in my 15 years here, I've seen a bit of an acceleration of even church plants happening and different ministries popping up, and a lot of people still coming in and having a lot of energy and drive. I think one thing that is most encouraging to me is that people are responding to the message. It's not going out void. There are many who are desperate and thirsty for that, for the message of the gospel, and are responding to it. And so we've seen even within our team, I think there's three or four Thais who have come up through the ministry who are excited or ready or seriously thinking about giving their life to lifetime ministry as a ministry worker in Thailand to their own people, which is really, really exciting.
So I want to dig into something that you said there. You said there's an actual plan for the evangelism of the nation among the national churches that are there. So you're telling me that Charismatics, the Baptists, the Presbyterians, everybody of all these different denominations, they got together, they actually traded notes, and they have a unified strategy for how they're going to reach Thailand?
They do. It's called the Congress, the Christian Congress. They have it up every 4 or 5 years now. So the plan shifts a little bit, but how many churches will be planted by 2050 and these kinds of things, and which areas need to be looked after. And so it's really cool, actually.
And I know there's some people in Baptist land, which I'm a proud member of Baptist land, but I know there's some people that tend to look at those interdenominational things with some suspicion. Well, we have to maintain our core convictions, and that's true. But I think on the mission field, you have to coordinate with other gospel-believing Christians. You don't have any option but to do that. We're still one universal, invisible church that's united to Christ. I mean, brother, what do you think is stopping people in, Grand Rapids? You named Grand Rapids, but people in the States from doing the same thing? What's driving them to have that kind of a unified strategy and approach that you see? I think relatively few believers in other parts of the world are able to have that much unity and coordinate their mission efforts together.
It's one of my first questions when I'm back. If I ever meet a pastor, I ask them, do you have any conferences where you're meeting with other pastors in the city? And do you guys have is there any plan for even just the city that you're in? I don't know who started it exactly or how that came to be, but I just know that when I first heard about it, I said, this is really something. And you're right. There's working across the aisle sometimes. And it's actually a really beautiful thing when you see people who love the gospel and want to see people come to know Christ.
I know in our city where we're in central Pennsylvania, our churches have a very hard time coordinating with each other. And there's a few local pastors' breakfasts, but the temptation to territorialism is tremendous, even among people that would say, well, I'm not territorial and I'm for the kingdom. And that's true, but they're not really co-laboring with other like-minded or mostly like-minded churches. It's mostly just our church, our programs. What are we going to do? And ideally, we're asking, what are we going to do to reach our city? But sometimes we're not even asking that. Sometimes we're just, if we're all being honest, we're trying to grow our own platforms, our own digital footprints or physical footprints of our church buildings. So you don't see that same type of turfiness in Thailand, it sounds like. It
is here. It can happen. It is here, and especially when it comes to finances or where support might be coming from, or those kinds of things. Definitely, you can still see it here. But I think in general, when you're such the minority in a country, less than 1% Christian, then you realize there's a lot to be gained from banding together a little bit.
And I don't know that this is accurate. I don't know even that it's that I'm remembering the fact accurately. But what I saw was that Thailand is one of the only countries in its part of Asia that has not at one point been under the rule of a colonial superpower. So to your knowledge, is that accurate? And if that's accurate, is that making evangelism there easier or harder? Are you swimming upstream against just a complete ignorance of what the gospel is or who Jesus is? Or are you maybe receiving a little bit more of a hearing because people don't have a preconception of Christianity or a preconception of what Western Christians are like in particular? How does the history of your context there inform the way you're going about ministry on a weekly basis?
Yeah, I think back in the day, Thailand was kind of a buffer between France and England. And so it kind of ended up staying the buffer, not needing to be colonialized at all. And so I think and at that same time, there was missionaries coming, establishing schools, establishing hospitals, and had a really good reputation in the country. And so you get the viewing, you get the hearing as a missionary in Thailand, just speaking the language, learning the language and living here. You have many chances. Oh, why do you speak Thai? And there's a chance to share the gospel. People are interested, and they'll say they like Christians, but mostly, you must be a good person. And so the line you run into almost every single time is, oh, you're a good person. We like you. Every religion teaches how to be a good person. And so that's when it gets a little harder to say, well, what is dealing with this idea of sin? And most people say, I'm a pretty good person. I don't know about that. And for us coming from, the more like guilt, innocence, have you ever read the 3D gospel, guilt, innocence, and shame, honor, or fear, power? You're dealing a lot more with shame, honor culture and fear, power culture in Thailand. So sometimes the message can get lost if we come at it from well, you're a sinner, guilty, and these kinds of things, rather than we were created for this beautiful relationship. God created us and gave us honor and relationship with him, and we turned our backs on God and shamed ourselves. And now we're living in that shame and brokenness. But God took that on us, and instead of giving us our, the righteous punishment relationally, cutting us off, he came back and is wanting to redeem us back to that relationship. Is a very different way, which you can really get people, you can get their ears in a different manner.
Yeah, and that's something we've talked about repeatedly on the show, and of course, there's dishes on both sides. We don't want to throw out guilt, innocence, but we would say that guilt and innocence, fear and shame, both of those paradigms, and of course, fear, power, the various value systems in which cultures think. Ultimately, what it all comes down to is there is a holy God. You've broken his law. Your relationship with him has been severed, but through Christ, you can be reunited to God, where you have righteous standing before him. You also have belonging. You receive honor and glory by belonging to the one true and living God. There's a way to reconcile those. So I would say personally, it's a both and. It's not an either or. But I do think you're right. I think if we kind of come in with our traditional, sort of, four spiritual laws or Romans Road type of approach, and if we're expecting that cross-culturally to just be immediately received, we have to do some of that hard work of contextualization. But you said something that I want to hone in on as well. You said you get a hearing because you've learned the language and you've stayed. And obviously anyone remotely familiar with what we've talked about on this show over the years or what ABWE as an organization does, we emphasize long-term missions, not just short-term trips. Short-term trips are good, but ultimately you need long-term missions to create a long-term impact. Talk to us a little bit why it's so important to learn a culture, to acquire a knowledge of the culture, and to stay not just for 4 or 5 years or 6 years, but really, whether it's you directly or your team, to commit to staying as long as the Lord wills and keeps that door open, to stay until the job is done, until there's a healthy, self-sustaining indigenous church that's capable of carrying on the work of mission. Maybe I'm already starting to answer the question a little bit, but why is it that it's so critical to give oneself to culture and language acquisition and staying for the long term?
Yeah, absolutely. For Thailand specifically, as a transactional culture, when I come as day one, fresh off the plane, I'm saying, help. I need help. I need to learn the language. I don't know how to get around. I'm ordering the same meal over and over again because I don't know what to say. And some of my best friends till today were ones that I was asking help of early on, because, we can come in with, I got the plans, I've got the strategies and everything, but this is one of the few times we can truly come in and say, I need help. Help me, please. And so you build some really, really deep relationships that way. And those relationships, when you stay present with them, I had a friend who served here for many, many years. And he said about every 6 months, people are going through a crisis in their life, whether it's relational or financial or something, health. And when you're there long-term, walking with people through 1, 2, or 3, crises in their lives, you really get a chance to show them over a long period of time, God's grace and his faithfulness and his love. And so it's really, really important. Thai people light up when you speak Thai. It's very much immediately we're so happy that you are trying to learn our language, and they want to hear a lot more just about your life and who you are, what you're doing. And so I think there's a respect that it shows to the culture. And then even being able to, for me, to be able to network people together, you have to remember names of churches or schools or people where they've studied and who they know and those kinds of things, to be able to connect people together. That would be pretty tough without being able to speak the language. And so I think it's a good way to, I always tell people, if you come to Thailand and say, I'd love to see your country, eat your food, learn your culture, learn your language, you'd have many, many friends who will be able to build some really strong relationships that way.
And it almost goes without saying, obviously speaking a person's language is one way you're going to begin to unlock what's in their heart and understand the way that they think. You have to get to know them as an individual as well. But for some reason in the missions world, there's been a growing emphasis on, let's not spend a lot of time with a people. Let's come in and leave real quick. Let's not get too deep into the language and culture. We don't want to colonialize anyone. We just want to be there and launch a movement. And then as soon as there's a movement going, we want to leave. And I just don't know that we have that option. I think we're supposed to be sowing seeds, and we're supposed to be watering those seeds and staying until the task is finished. And yeah, that's going to require a multitude of different people. We can't do it all on our own. But for everyone who's involved in the Lord's harvest, there's a tenacity and a perseverance and a commitment to the ultimate outcome is not just converts. The ultimate outcome is healthy churches that are themselves reaching their neighbors and sending missionaries and so forth. And we've seen this in ABWE's history, sending missionaries to nearby people groups and nearby nations. And so, if somebody's looking at Asia today, and of course, we've had lots of reporting in media through the years for decades about, Asia is on the rise and the West is maybe receding in some ways, at least in terms of population. And you look at all the opportunity, and there's so many unreached and completely even unengaged pieces of the Asian landmass, people groups with little to no access to the gospel at all in their heart language. What's strategic about Thailand? If we can flood Thailand with the gospel in the few minutes that we have here, is there a way we can reach those other nations by reaching Thailand out of the overflow of that gospel witness? In a minute or two, do you think that's a viable strategy? Can we reach Asia by reaching Thailand?
I believe we can. There is a diaspora of so many people who are in Thailand. There's already so many conferences, so many programs that come. People fly into Bangkok and head back to their home countries. Probably multiple I've even just seen in passing at a conference center that I said, here's a group of pastors from a country I didn't know that they're allowed to do that, or they can't meet together in their own country. They come to Thailand for those trainings and things and head back. And I think it's really beautiful. I just quickly wanted to touch on what you were saying earlier about the staying power long term, because Thailand and many countries, you go through that honeymoon period. But when you get a depth of faith, Thailand is a beautiful country. Top to bottom, it's very, very beautiful. But there's a lot of brokenness here. It's a very overtly spiritual, and almost beautifully spiritual with all the ornate things they have, but there is this darkness and this lostness to it. And, people in Thailand say sabai, very, very calm culture, but there is a lot of pressure and stress built up. And so when you get past that honeymoon phase and you're staying through that hurt, that pain, that dark stuff, that deep stuff, I think it builds a really strong and solid church that's ready to reach its neighbor, ready to reach nearby countries and stuff. So I think that many countries in Southeast Asia look up to Thailand in a lot of ways. And so I think there is definitely opportunity to reach Thailand and either jump over into the other countries or have people come for conferences, come for trainings, and to be able to head back.
No, that's important. I think there is strategy there. And I know there's some young people that are thinking missions that want to go to the hardest place and do the hardest thing. But sometimes what needs to be done is stepping into a context like what you're describing and looking for the opportunities to build bridges into some of the surrounding nations and networks of believers that are already doing the long, hard work of evangelism in their own context. And we want to continue the conversation with you. I'm fascinated, but I also want to learn not just about the field. I want to hear more what's happening in your life. Some of your followers, people that are aware of your ministry through ABWE, they might know that your family, you've been walking through some difficulty the last several years, not only with your children, but even with your own health, Ben. And we want to give our ministry followers an opportunity to learn how they can be praying for you. But we would encourage people to go to abwe.org, type in Ben Collins, look at their giving page. And if the Lord would lead you to support their ministry, become a partner with their ministry. We're going to continue the conversation with Ben in our overtime episode for subscribers, which you can get access to if you go to missionsshow.com/premium, or in your Apple Podcast app, you can subscribe there. If you're one of our Lighthouse TV viewers in central Pennsylvania, you can also get access to it through the Lighthouse streaming app. We'd encourage you to do so as well. For everyone else, we thank you for joining us on this episode of The Missions Show, and we will see you next week. Until then, remember, The Missions Show is a ministry of ABWE. You can take your next steps with missions at abwe.org. And from all of us here, go and make disciples of all the nations.